present and me.
Good morning, so.
Asuze yini kusho ukuthi good morning so.
Okay. The guy DM. You are muted.
Rapila and that.
Ifana now. Maphila nyaphila uyagula nyagula.
Okay.
Yeah, how lo ala jalwa.
Aspilek.
Ralebo.
Yeah.
Oh, good morning. It's a good morning we nkosazana emhlophe.
Good morning.
Kunjani yesazane?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Afternoon, honorable. How are you today?
I'm fine. Yourself?
It's hot here, KZN. Very, very hot today.
Ay, nilima masimi makhawula nenze njani kani?
Ngathi uyazi nje sibhizi nokuthi kulinywe manje. Tshala ubhatata.
Ngitshala ubhatata sizowudla ngoFebruary March.
Nazo-ke sithathe.
Sharp.
Okay, my love.
she's a pen. Sure.
Vali mic, presiding officer.
Mute, Chairperson.
Good afternoon, honorable members. I welcome all who have logged in the virtual mini-plenary session.
Recording in progress.
There will now be an opportunity for silence prayer or meditation. Thank you, honorable members. Before we proceed, I would like to remind you that the virtual mini-plenary is deemed to be in the precinct of Parliament and constitute a meeting of the National Assembly for debating purposes only. In addition, honorable members, to the rules of virtual cities, the rules of the National Assembly, including the rules of debate, apply. Members enjoy the same powers and privileges that apply in a sitting of the National Assembly. Members should equally note that anything said in the virtual platform is deemed to have been said in the House and may be ruled upon. All members who have logged in shall be considered to be present and are requested to mute their microphone and only unmute when recognized to speak. This is because the mics are very sensitive and will pick up noise which might disturb the attention of other members. When recognized to speak, please unmute your microphone and where connectivity permits, connect your video. Members may make use of the icon on the bar at the bottom of their screens, which has an option that allows a member to put up his or her hand to point or points of order. The Secretariat will assist in alerting the chairperson to members requesting to speak. When using the virtual system, members are urged to refrain or desist from unnecessary points of order or interjections. Lastly, honorable members, I wish to remind you that we are meeting in a mini-plenary session, and therefore any decision will be taken in a full plenary session of the Assembly. The first order of the day on the order paper is a motion in the name of Mr. J S Malema. I now recognize Honorable Malema. Honorable Malema, I mean.
Hmm?
Now it's
Madam
your turn. I
Speaker,
recognize you.
we are here to introduce the EFF motion on the termination of all diplomatic relationship with the apartheid state of Israel, in particular the removal of its embassy from our land.
Honorable Malema,
Accordingly, we table a draft resolution, understanding that at a later stage, when the full plenary of parliamentarians see,
there is a point of
the House
order,
will vote and hopefully do so in our favor. Our call is based on the brutal and inhuman violence that the apartheid state of Israel has unleashed on the people of Gaza over the past several weeks.
May the IT just, Honorable Malema, I'm sorry to do this to you. There is a point of order. Honorable Hunevart, I think I saw your hand up. There is a hand here in the platform. I recognize you, honorable member who had his hand up. You may speak. If you don't, then we shall proceed. And I assume that you forfeit your speaking right because I have recognized you. Having no hand, that the hand has disappeared, Honorable Malema, my apology for that. You may proceed. Honorable Malema, the
This
hand
violence
has
has been over 11,000 Palestinians massacred in an unprecedented military bombardment of unarmed, innocent, and helpless civilians in the whole of human history. In this inhuman bombardment, the Israeli Defense Force has murdered 4,650 children, 3,145 women, 198 medics, 22 civil defense personnel, and 51 journalists. Reports also indicate that 29,200 Palestinians in Gaza are injured. Above all, at least 3,600 people remain unaccounted for. In the devastation of buildings and landscapes, apartheid Israel aggression has forced 25 hospitals and 52 healthcare centers out of service, while 55 ambulances were targeted by Israeli forces. This should tell us that indeed Israel has declared war against children, hospitals, ambulances, journalists, and general campaign to wipe Palestinians off face of the earth. Many here will try to defend the defenseless situation in that country, but we all know that this is not defensible. However, this will be deliberate effort to blind us to the true story of Palestine, a story of over 70 of inhumanity that started with a colonial military occupation and ethnic cleansing of Palestinians by Zionist forces that established the state of Israel in 1948 as an apartheid state. A story of what Palestinians call the Nakaba, where Zionist colonial forces backed by British and USA governments expelled at least 750,000 Palestinians from their homes, lands, and captured 78% of historic Palestine. Here is where the remaining 22% was divided into what we now call the occupied West Bank and the besieged Gaza Strip. Since then, even the 22% was never allowed any form of self-determination. Palestinians have lived under Israeli military occupation without basic human rights, such as the rights to life, the right to equality, the right to a fair trial, the right to protest, the freedom of speech, the freedom of movement, the freedom of assembly or media freedom. This has been going on not since October 2023, but since 1948, and that is 75 years of hell, mass murder, ethnic cleansing, and brutal humiliation. We must remember that over 12,000 Palestinians, children, have been detained since the year 2000 alone. Of this, over 700 children who are unaccounted for in Israel. In addition, Israel has over 7,000 political prisoners, 200 of which again are children. It is reported by Israel itself that on average 204 Palestinian children have been held in custody every month since 2012. The world is aware of all these facts. Israel does not see Palestinian children. It hates them the same way the apartheid regime hated children like Tsitsi Mashinini, Hector Peterson, and many who were murdered in Soweto in 1976 and beyond. The world is unaware that Israel constructed a wall and fence that separated Palestinian towns and villages from Israel settlements, which designated only the occupied West and Gaza. In Gaza, for over 50 years, this has been caused a population of 2 million people living on top of each other, the most densely populated area on earth. There are over 100 racially discriminated checkpoints, separate roads in which over 130 occasional roadblocks and searches conducted subject Palestinians to constant humiliation and dehumanization. In recent years, before the current destruction of Gaza, Israel launched 4 protracted military assaults on Gaza alone in 2008, 2012, 2014, 2021. The 2008 assaults involved the use of internationally banned. 2014, over a span of 50 days, Israel killed more than 2,100 Palestinians, including 1,462 civilians and close to 500 children. During the assault, they called Operation Protective Edge, about 11,000 Palestinians were wounded, 20,000 homes destroyed, and 500,000 people displaced. So what is happening today is part of over half a century-old project to wipe Palestine and Palestinians off the face of the earth. It is a systematic and gradual genocide unleashed by the state that established itself as an ethnic exclusive state of Jews at the expense of indigenous Palestinian population. We must therefore reject the idea that because Israel calls itself a Jewish state, opposing its brutal apartheid system is anti-Semitic. There is nothing anti-Semitic about opposing injustice, particularly apartheid. Zionism does not equal Jewishness or Judaism. No one must manipulate scripture in the Bible or the Torah to promote ethnic cleansing, racism, and the mass murder of people. There are no special human beings with the right to massacre others so that they can benefit from the subsequent stolen land. We are all chosen people of God. We all loved by God, and we must oppose any form of inequality and racism, even by those who do it in the name of God. We must therefore never buy into the lie and propaganda that this is a religious war. This is not a holy war. It is an evil war by an evil regime that is driving an evil agenda. Israel is a Zionist apartheid regime seeking to wipe Palestinians off the face of the earth. Palestinians who have all the rights to exist, particularly in the land of their ancestors. We therefore call on all of the world to isolate Israel through boycotts, disinvestment, sanctions until they end their military occupation and allow Palestinian refugees in surrounding countries like Lebanon, Syria, the right of return. We call on the Ramaphosa ANC government to shut down the Israeli embassy in Pretoria and end diplomatic relations with that brutal apartheid Israel regime. In the name of our own constitutional values, we must end these relations until human rights of Palestinians are respected, promoted, and protected. Israel must comply with international law, and until then, any relations with them must be regarded as an offensive on our constitution. The president yesterday said they are going to send a complaint to International Criminal Court against Israel and Netanyahu, in line with what the president has said. And as survivors of apartheid ourselves, we must fight on the side of the Palestinian people and always be on the side of the weak. We therefore calling on members of parliament and the people of South Africa to support the call to remove the Palestinian Israeli embassy in South Africa. We can't share a territory with murderers. We say no to the embassy of Israel in South Africa. It must go, and it must go now. No justice, no peace. Free Palestine. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I now recognize the Honorable Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Honorable K.C. Mashego Dlamini. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Honorable members, ladies and gentlemen. The root cause of the war between Israel and Palestine go back to Israel's systematic oppression of the Palestinians over the past 75 years. The illegal occupation of their land and the ever-expanding web of illegal settlement deep into Palestinian territory, the ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian is not travesty that begins with the October the 7th attack this year. It has been a constant factor over many decades. Decades prior to the state of Israel being declared in 1948 based on partition, the Palestinians have been promised their own independent state. The promise were never fulfilled. Honorable members, since the 1998 Oslo Accord, the number of illegal Israel settlers occupying Palestinian land has increased from 250,000 at that time to over 700,000 today. All settlement and outposts are considered illegal under the international law as they violate the 4th Geneva Convention, which bans an occupying power from transferring its population to the area of occupiers. Israel has also built a separation wall that stretches for more than 700 kilometers through the West Bank, constructed deep into Palestinian territory, cutting Palestinians off from their farmland and water resources. The wall restricts the movement of more than 3 million Palestinians in the occupied West Bank and East Jerusalem, as do the 140 checkpoints that Palestinians have to cross in their daily commute to work. In 2014, the International Court of Justice declared the apartheid war illegal under the international law. Honorable members, the landmark UN Security Council Resolution 2334 is unequivocal on the issue of illegal Israel settlement. The resolution confirms that Israel's settlement constitutes a flagrant violation under the international law and instructively called for all settlement activities in the occupied Palestinian territory, including East Jerusalem, to immediately and completely cease. Israel continued to undermine the international community in its race to create fact on the ground. The action that we are witnessing daily by Israel are a violation of international law, including the UN Charter, the Geneva Convention, and its protocol. In its attack on civilians and taking a hostage, Hamas has also violated international law. Israel, as an occupier, does not have the right to defend itself using military means. This fact has been confirmed by the International Court of Justice. An occupying state cannot exercise control over territory it occupies and simultaneously military attack that territory on the claim that it is foreign and possess an exigent national security threat. The nation of Israel's right to defend itself through military means has been used erroneously to justify the unlawful use of force by Israel on the people of Gaza and the West Bank. International humanitarian law includes the obligation not to target civilians' population and the responsibility to protect civilians' armed conflict. Under the Geneva Convention, hospitals are considered civilian objects and must be protected. Article 12 clearly states that medical units shall be respected and protected at all times and shall not be object of attack. Article 14 of the Geneva Convention categorically states that starvation of civilians as a method of combating is prohibited. It is therefore prohibited to attack, destroy, remove, and render useless for the purpose object dispensable to the survival of the civilian population, such as foodstuff, agricultural area for the production of foodstuff, crop and livestock, drinking water installation and supply and irrigation work. The instructions issued by the Israel authorities for the population of Gaza City to immediately leave their home, coupled with the complete siege, implicitly denying them food, water, electricity, and bombing apartments, schools, and hospitals are grave violation of international humanitarian law. The International Criminal Court need to expedite its investigation of Israel for committing war crime, including genocide, by bombarding and besieging Gaza. Honorable members, since 1994, South Africa's foreign policy position on Palestine has been consistent and has displayed systematic diplomatic support at multilateral, regional, and bilateral level, acting both as a catalyst and amplifier to the Palestinian cause. To this effect, South Africa has played a role in supporting peace efforts by sharing its negotiated transitional experience, supporting capacity building, and strengthening Palestinian itself, facilitating inter-Palestinian dialogue, including the appointment of a presidential special envoy, and support at the African Union, amongst other initiatives. The South African Parliament voted on the 7th of March this year to downgrade the South African embassy in Israel, and the number of parties have agreed to that motion of the NFP, except being opposed by the DA, ACDP, IFP, and FFP. The National Assembly ultimately voted in favor of the downgrading of the South African embassy in Israel to a liaison officer, which served to realize the ANC 2017 conference resolution to downgrade the embassy to the liaison officer. Amidst the continued violation of the Palestinian human rights and the siege of Gaza, South Africa recalled its ambassador to Israel in May 2018 in protest against the massacre of Palestinians as they demonstrated peacefully at the Israel-Gaza border. Since 2018, the South African embassy in Israel has been headed by a charges affair. South Africa cannot have a normal relations with Israel for as long as Israel is committing war crime and genocide against the Palestinians, is intent on removing Palestinians from their land, and is unwilling to negotiate a viable peace plan without preconditions. South Africa cannot be party to Israel's action that will see the promise of Israel's statehood reduced into balkanized entities devoid of true sovereignty, without territory, and with no economic viability. Our government is in discussion with the matter of closing the Israel embassy in Pretoria, and will need to take into consideration that it may affect our diplomatic presence in Palestine. The demands from South Africans for the closure of the Israel embassy in Pretoria have merit, and the government is engaging all relevant stakeholders regarding our diplomatic relations with Israel, given the war crime and genocide we are witnessing in Gaza. Following the outcome of the cabinet meeting held on the 1st of November this year, South Africa commenced the process of recalling its diplomats from Tel Aviv. This decision was taken in light of the Israel's government campaign on ethnic cleansing in Gaza, which has seen thousands of civilian dead, and as a result of the continual bombardment of residential buildings, hospitals, schools, with over 70% of the victims being women and children. South Africa is deeply concerned at the report that the number of children killed in Gaza since October 7 has surpassed the number of children killed across all the world's conflict zone since 2019. As the crisis has reached a catastrophic proportion, the UN Security Council has proved incapable of stopping the carnage and protecting civilians against the Israel military onslaught. The South African government is considering further concrete action to take. The Department of International Relations and Cooperation has demarched the ambassador of the State of Israel to South Africa, Mr. Alvid, on the 9th of November to express South African grave concerns regarding the current trajectory of events, especially the attacks on Gaza, which have seen over 11,000 civilians, including over 8,000 women and children killed by Israel airstrike. It was emphasized that there are war crimes under international law. That is war crime under international law. Ambassador Alif was informed that South Africa intends to request the International Criminal Court to investigate the leadership of Israel for war crime against humanity and genocide. South Africa will also request that the Hamas leadership be investigated for its violation of international law when it kidnaps and killed Israel's civilians. The UN Secretary General has amply stated, and I quote, he said, the nightmare in Gaza is more than a humanitarian crisis. It is a crisis of humanity, close quote. South Africa is calling for an immediate ceasefire, urgently entry into Gaza of massive humanitarian aid, the urgent deployment of the UN Protection Force to protect civilians, the release of civilian hostage, and for the ICC to expedite its investigation and hold those who have directed this war accountable for their war crime. We must also ensure that a comprehensive arms embargo is imposed on Israel. We fully reject the forced display of the Palestinian people from their land, and we will not stand by and watch and every red line in war is crossed and the region descends into a zero-sum game of death and destruction. The time to act is now. Our common humanity dictates that all human life matters. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I now recognize Honorable E.L. Powell.
Chairperson, let me begin by extending the DA's heartfelt condolences to the family of the office head of the Gift of the Givers in Gaza, Mr. Ahmed Abisi. The DA once again reiterates its call for civilians to be shielded from collective punishment and for international humanitarian law and the protocols of the Geneva Convention to be upheld. The DA calls for an immediate investigation into the killing of Mr. Abasi and that those responsible are brought to justice. It is for this very reason that it is vital for South Africa to retain diplomatic channels with both Israel and the Palestinian Authority. The ANC's decision to withdraw diplomats from Tel Aviv and the EFF's proposed expulsion of the Israeli ambassador will diminish our country's ability to demand accountability in the region and to influence a swift and peaceful resolution to this war. Sadly, honorable members, in the face of this brutal war, the political opportunism on display by both the ANC and the EFF is indicative of their inherent moral bankruptcy. Having failed to build a prosperous South Africa, these parties must now look for any opportunity to deepen divisions from which they can score cheap political points. This is why when the ANC and their proxies look to Gaza, they do not see human tragedy. Rather, they see political opportunity. So long as their performative sanctimony is convincing enough to temporarily distract the nation from their failure as our government, they could not care less how many more Palestinians have to die. Honorable members, the ANC are not peace brokers, they are agent provocateurs. They do not care about international law or human rights. They care only for their own political survival at whatever cost. If the ANC were genuinely interested in peace, human rights, and the rule of law, they would have spoken out against the unspeakable tragedy currently unfolding in Sudan, where more than 10,000 civilians have been killed amidst some of the most brutal ethnic cleansing the world has witnessed in a generation. They would have stood up for the 7 million Sudanese people, 3 million of them children, who have fled into neighboring countries seeking refuge from the violence and now comprise the largest displaced population of children in the world. But despite the gravity of this tragedy unfolding on the African continent, the ANC has not only remained silent, but has actively worked against advancing peace in the region.
A point of order, Madam Chairperson. Point of order. Chairperson, may I please proceed?
It looks like the chairperson has disappeared. You can proceed, Honorable Ndlozi.
Disconnected.
Thanks, Chair. I think that the rules are very clear
There's
about
no chair at the moment. There's no chair at the moment. I think you should wait.
Yeah, but there's a point of relevance. We are speaking about Palestine and the Israeli conflict. We are not speaking about
right now.
We are not speaking about
recognized. No, you are not the
that are
chair.
raging elsewhere in the world. That is the point of relevance. This honorable member is irrelevant.
Honorable Jonesy.
Oh, you are back, Chairperson.
No, but you can't take that opportunity.
So Chair, but I was waiting.
No. Stop
and people
it.
started howling at me.
No, Honorable Jonesy, please.
Somebody gave him permission to proceed. I don't know who that person was.
Yes, there was a point of
why
order.
is the chairperson now talking about an order on me? Because somebody said I must proceed.
No, you can't proceed. Did you raise it? Okay, that's fine. Now
Yes, he raised the point
the
of
meeting
order,
is in
Chairperson.
order.
He did raise
There
a
is
point of
hand.
order.
You did. Okay. Honorable Jonesy, it's humane for me to apologize because the system kicked me out. I think it's proper for me to do that. And request Honorable Powell to proceed.
What about my point of
Chairperson.
order?
My timer was at 2 minutes and 47.
Honorable Powell, there is another point of order. Honorable Khader. There is a point of order. Somebody here. I thought it's Khader because I have already
is not finished with the point of order, Chairperson.
Okay, but I was apologizing to him. I thought he would still come in. That's fine. Let's allow him to do so. Dr. Ndlozi,
yes, Chair. Thanks, Chair. I'm sorry the system kicked you out and I have to repeat this. The rules are very clear about us discussing a relevant topic on the table. We're talking about Palestine and a motion in relation to the expulsion of Israel. And the honorable member is speaking about the Sudan. I mean, what would happen if we allow other people to also come speak about gangsterism in Cape Town, other people to come speak about other conflicts? We must stick to the topic on the table.
Thank you, Honorable Ndlozi. The relevance of the point you are raising. However, we can't dictate what the member opts to talk to. Let's allow her to finish. Honorable Powell, you may proceed.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to confirm my time. I stopped my timer at 2 minutes and 47, and I will now resume. But despite the gravity of this tragedy unfolding on the African continent, the ANC has not only remained entirely silent, but has actively worked against advancing peace in that region. On the 11th of October, South Africa abstained from a resolution at the United Nations Human Rights Council calling for an immediate ceasefire in Sudan. Why? Because the same resolution called for the establishment of an international fact-finding mission to investigate the root cause of the current conflict, much of which can be traced back to the ANC's failure to arrest Sudanese dictator Omar al-Bashir when he visited South Africa in 2015, despite a warrant from the ICC. The reign of terror dispensed by the paramilitary forces deployed by Bashir during the war is estimated to have killed more than 300,000 civilians. Instead of arresting their ringleader, the ANC turned a blind eye as Bashir fled by helicopter. And so, as has become their custom, when more than 1,300 Sudanese civilians were butchered in West Darfur last week, the ANC looked the other way. Honourable members, if the ANC were genuinely interested in advancing a human rights-based agenda, our foreign minister would not be fraternising with Iranian President Raisi, whose own government has ordered the execution of more than 1,200 of their civilians since August 2021. The honourable minister would not have telephoned and pledged her support to the leader of Hamas, who has not had a democratic mandate in Palestine since 2006. And in this process, she has sidelined the Palestinian Authority and the millions of Palestinians who want nothing to do with Hamas. If the ANC cared about human rights or international law, they would not have remained silent in the face of Russia's illegal invasion of Ukraine, and the South African Defence Forces would not have been deployed to play war games while Putin's army continued to kill innocent civilians in Bakhmut. The truth is that the ANC is only interested in inflaming divisions to score political points. And make no mistake, over the graves of Gaza, the ANC have spotted an opportunity and their misinformation machine is now moving ahead full throttle. The ANC Secretary General seems to have forgotten that it was under his party's watch that more than 27,000 of our own citizens were murdered last year, and on his watch that our national rail collapsed and that our unemployment rate soared to 42%. Mbalula and his proxies may have forgotten, but the people of this nation remember. We see you, and we will continue to expose you for the hypocrites you are. In conclusion, Chairperson, let me be clear. Despite the constant stream of manufactured propaganda, the DA will continue to stand firm on principle. We will continue to speak out against radicalism, hatred, and tyranny. And we will continue to call for the protection of innocent civilians and for the right of both Palestinians and Israelis to sovereignty, statehood, and security.
I now recognize Honorable Hlengwa M. Hlengwa. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chairperson. The IFP notes the EFF resolution on the removal of the Israeli embassy in South Africa and the suspension of all diplomatic relations with Israel. At the outset, the IFP condemns the continued violent acts of war in Israel and Palestine, which have had an adverse and untenable effect on civilians, especially women and children. The war must stop. As the IFP, we have stated in this House, and today we reiterate that we do not believe that cutting diplomatic ties with Israel is the best course of action as relates to the current conflict between Israel and Palestine. I therefore wish to reiterate what we said last week in this House, that isolationism in a time of war is not a solution. It is tantamount to running away. Recalling ambassadors or removing ambassadors amounts to regressive diplomacy. It is counterproductive to the clarion call for peace and negotiation. How can South Africa possibly contribute towards the Middle East peace process through mediation efforts if we have expelled one of the parties to the said negotiations from our shores? Diplomacy is not only the profession, activity, or skill of managing international relations, but can also refer to the art of dealing with people in a sensitive and tactful way. Both apply in this situation. The Israeli-Palestine conflict would not be solved by forcefully silencing one of the parties. On the international stage, South Africa has positioned itself to be a country that believes in equality and democracy and negotiations. Therefore, all voices need to be given an equal opportunity to state their case to resolve this conflict. While the IFP is in full support with the EFF on the portion of the resolution which condemns the killing of defenseless children and women in Gaza, no mention is made of the 1,200 Israeli citizens who were killed on October 7 when Hamas attacked Israel. Many of these Israelis were unarmed civilians, including women and children. It is important to note, therefore, that war is never one-sided. As a party that champions nonviolence, the IFP is of the view that brute force and armed aggression and the bloodshed are never the solution to any dispute, no matter what the circumstances. We therefore reiterate our call for peace and an immediate cessation of hostilities and an end to the violence, and ensuring that humanitarian aid reaches all those that are affected, particularly in Palestine. We call for Israel to restrain itself and to come to the negotiating table, as we want Palestine at that table and Hamas. As regards to the Israeli-Palestinian land question, the IFP continues to advocate for a two-state solution for Israel and Palestine, as we believe that this is key to peace, justice, and stability in the Middle East. This will require both sides to make concessions in the service of the greater good and the ultimate realization of peace in the region. We will further continue to call on all parties to come to the negotiating table and to declare an immediate ceasefire. I thank you, House Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I now recognize Honorable Dr. C.P. Mutla. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Colleagues, good afternoon. The ANC today is again in a rather difficult position, and it reminds me of what we saw a few years ago when the EFF took the initiative when it came to the question of expropriation without compensation. It was the EFF that brought a motion to Parliament, and then the ANC had to follow. Now we've got the same situation today where the EFF takes the initiative and the ANC will have to follow. I listened very carefully to the Honourable Deputy Minister Mashego Dlamini, and I heard her say that the ANC is currently discussing this and they will have to take a decision one way or the other. Well, fact of the matter is that this resolution will be before the House on Tuesday next week, and then we will have to vote on that motion. So the ANC has got until Tuesday next week to decide what their position is going to be. The fact of the matter is that if you expel the Israeli ambassador and cut all diplomatic ties with Israel, South Africa will not be in a position to play any role whatsoever in terms of any mediation or any chance to try and play a constructive and a positive role to bring this conflict to an end. However, it's interesting to note that not one Arab country that currently does have diplomatic ties with Israel, Egypt, Jordan, Morocco, the United Arab Emirates, not one of them have severed any diplomatic ties with Israel despite what is currently going on. The Honourable Deputy Minister mentioned the fact that Palestine is entitled to her own homeland, and we all agree with that. But the fact of the matter is that since 1937, 6 such offers for an independent Palestinian homeland was made to the Palestinians, and they were all rejected. It is alleged that during the recent Islamic Arab Summit, that Algeria proposed that all diplomatic ties should be cut with Israel and everything should be cut in that instance. But that proposal was blocked by Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, Jordan, Egypt, Bahrain, Sudan, Morocco, Mauritania, and Djibouti. They were not prepared to do that, and South Africa should think very carefully before we go into that kind of approach. The Honourable Minister said, the Deputy Minister said that at the moment the ANC is considering their options, but it may have implications for South Africa's representation in Ramallah. I can assist the Honourable Minister. It's not a question that it may have implications, it will definitely have implications. Let me try to explain to the House. At the moment, our people that represent South Africa in Ramallah, 6 diplomats, all stay in Israel. They stay in Jerusalem and around those areas, and they have diplomatic immunity from Israel to do their jobs in Ramallah. If South Africa cuts all diplomatic ties with Israel, that will come to an end. Currently, those diplomats that represent South Africa in Ramallah and the Palestinian side and the West Bank, they fly into Ben Gurion Airport and then they travel to Ramallah, and that is where they work, but they don't stay there. The diplomatic ties are cut. They will no longer be allowed to fly into Ben Gurion Airport. They will have to fly to Jordan. They will no longer be able to stay in Israel. They will have to stay in Ramallah. But first of all, they will have to enter the West Bank from Jordan across a bridge which is controlled by Israel. And it's most unlikely that they will be allowed to enter West Bank. So South African government must understand that if they take these steps, it will have definite, direct implications for South Africa's representation in Ramallah. The fact of the matter is that we must understand that very clearly. Israel is not that dependent on South Africa's relationship. We can learn more from Israel in terms of Israeli products, etc. At the moment, lists are going around with Israeli products that should be boycotted and Israeli companies. But I'm still waiting for the alternative list of Palestinian products and companies that we should support. I haven't seen those. It would be a short-sighted decision by the South African government. It's opportunistic from the EFF, and we'll see on Tuesday if the South African government does the right thing and continue with diplomatic attempts to solve this problem. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. I now recognize Honorable Ref K, RJ Moshwe, and I can see you are having breakfast there, you are having tea, Mruti. Over to you, sir.
We have national doubt. You cannot tell us who to support and who not to support. We have a right to support anyone.
Honorable Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
I'm sorry, Presiding Officer, I'm sorry.
Let's start the draw, Chairperson.
Yes, I'm recognizing you, sir.
All right. On behalf of the African Christian Democratic Party, I hereby wish to reject the EFF motion in the name of Mr. J S Malema that we are debating today. The ACDP totally rejects this dangerous motion because it is full of lies, inaccuracies, and deceptions. To label Israel as an apartheid state is a lie that was coined by haters of Israel. Furthermore, to insinuate that Israel does not own land they are living on is another lie that the ACDP rejects. It is only the enemies of Israel, the ignorant, and the people who are allergic to truth who stubbornly refuse to accept the fact that the land the Israelis are living on was given by God to Abraham and his descendants long before the existence of Christianity and Islam. The ACDP rejects the EFF's call to government to close the Israeli embassy in South Africa and suspend all diplomatic relations with Israel. The EFF is ignorant of the fact that South Africa needs Israel much more than Israel needs South Africa. The EFF and the ANC must stop being hypocrites and accept the fact that South Africa has many needs and Israel has the expertise to meet them in areas such as healthcare, innovation, technology, agriculture, and economic growth. Without Israel, we risk diplomatic tensions that can hinder communication channels for addressing regional issues and ending business collaborations that would reduce economic opportunities, trade, investments, and job creation. It is hypocritical for Mr. Malema and the EFF to accuse Israel of killing defenseless children and women in Gaza when they know that Hamas, their brutal friend, is using women as human shields. The ACDP wants to know when is the EFF and ANC going to start wearing scarves in solidarity with South African families whose loved ones are killed daily in this country. The wearing of Palestinian scarves when they come to parliament highlights the fact that they love haters of Israel much more than they care for their own people here at home. In conclusion, Rabbi Jonathan Kahn reminded us the other day that in the book of Jeremiah, God said, and I quote, "As long as the sun and stars of heaven remain in the sky, so long as the order of the cosmos is in place, the Jewish people will remain a nation before him," close quote. He further said, the enemy has raged against the children of Israel for thousands of years. The pharaohs tried to destroy them. Assyria tried to wipe them out. Babylon tried to smash them. Rome tried to eliminate them. The Nazis tried to annihilate them. But the nation of Israel still lives because the God of Israel, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is alive. Israel Chai.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Thank you. I now recognize Honorable Okay, I now recognize Bula.
Thank you, Chairperson. The head of state of South Africa has filed a referral to the International Criminal Court for the war crimes committed by Israel in Gaza. The head of state of the country stated South Africa believes Israel is committing war crimes and genocide in Gaza. This, Chairperson, is very clear. We can't, as a country, refer Israel to the ICC for investigation for what we believe is war crimes and genocide, yet on the other side maintain normal relations with Israel. As a country, we can't be contradicting ourselves. We express our support to the South African government's decision to recall all South African diplomats from Israel. This step underscores our commitment to the principles of justice and human rights. As a nation that has overcome the shackles of apartheid, we must not only empathize, but actively support those who yearn their own freedom and self-determination. South Africa's history in fighting apartheid is defined by courage and resilience. We cannot be silent when we are faced with such human rights violations. The struggle for justice and equality is not bound by borders. Our shared history compels us to take a stand against oppression wherever it occurs. We must learn from our past and use that knowledge to advocate for a just and peaceful resolution to the Israel-Palestine conflict. In conclusion, the ATM calls Parliament to support the closure of the Israel embassy in South Africa and the suspension of all diplomatic relations with Israel. I hear some members, Chairperson, saying we need Israel. I want to tell them this. As a country, we do not need countries that kill innocent women and children who bomb such countries. Our own history tells us countries cutting diplomatic relations with the apartheid South Africa helped to isolate the apartheid government, which led to its downfall. Let us stand united in condemning violations of human rights, recalling the diplomats from Israel, and expelling the Israeli ambassador for his insensitive comments. Together, we can send a powerful message that South Africa remains a bastion of justice, human rights, and solidarity with the oppressed. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I now recognize Honourable Good. Good. Honourable NFP. NFP.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chairperson. Allow me to start off by saying I am not surprised with the comments from some of the members in this House. Sometimes I wonder whether we have a human anatomy or human blood, or do we have blood of a creature or for an animal? Because I've even seen some animals feel the pain when they see pain experienced by their fellow members of their breed. But in this particular House, some of them only see what they want to see. Now, the DA made a statement trying to do some damage control the other day. The north of Gaza, where all the gas is to the south so that they can loot together with the West. And that's what it is all about. I'm not surprised with the Freedom Front. That's where they come from. They abused us. They oppressed us. So they only know the language oppression and nothing else. You can't get better from them in any case. They've never shown any sympathy or empathy to you, anybody else, unless you are white supremacists like themselves. As far as the ACDP and proper, you're always using religion. Well, let me give you some good news. It is your propaganda that said that 40 children were beheaded. And
he keeps going away.
What a wonderful idea.
Honorable Sheikh Imam, have you switched off your video now? We have lost connectivity. You've got 1 minute left. I think the system has kicked him out. I don't see him anymore. That will allow us
please note a point of order from the ACDP as well, when Sheikh Imam is back.
No. Oh, okay. No, may I then proceed and recognize Honorable AIC, Honorable Cope, Honorable PAC, Honorable Al-Jama. Are you back? Al-Jama,
Yes.
just hold on. Let me just say you've got 1 minute left, Honorable Member. You may proceed.
is that all? Okay. First of all, you said that
Point of
40
order,
children
Chair.
will be beheaded with your
No,
propaganda.
Can I take my point of order, please?
Without doubt, there's no such a thing.
Honorable Sheikh Imam, just give me 1 second. There's a point of order. Honorable Tring.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, the Honorable Sheikh Imam says that the ACDP has been spreading propaganda. The ACDP does not spread any propaganda.
Honorable
There's
Member,
no
now
propaganda from the side of the ACDP.
No, Honorable
Please
Member, can I
withdraw that.
assist you? As you do that, now you are getting into the point of debate. You must craft your point of order in such a way that is clear that it is a point of order. Thank you very much. Honorable Sheikh Imam, proceed.
You spread propaganda that there are tunnels under the Al-Shifa hospital. It is now proven without a fact that those are images from Sweden. You speak about the IDF, which says that Hamas has killed our people.
Okay. Proceed, honorable member. I thought there's another point of my apology for that.
And now it has been proven even by a Jewish settler who says that is the Israeli defense force that opened fire and killed many of the Israeli hostages. That is exactly what the truth is all about. So stop coming here and misleading the public as to what is really happening. The truth of the matter is the land belonged to the Palestinians. When the Jews were thrown out all over the world, it's the Palestinians showed them love and respect and welcomed them on every occasion. So stop using that. The truth is we must shut down this embassy. We must shut it down immediately. Kick out the ambassador. Those that are part and parcel of the atrocities in the IDF, let's charge them and hand them over to the criminal court, the International Criminal Court. There's no further. Let's not worry about any further sanction. Let's shut it down, break all ties until the barbaric state of Israel is willing to sit down and negotiate and enter into a ceasefire. Nothing less, Chairperson, we need in this country.
Thank you. I now recognize Cope. We shall proceed, honorable members. I recognize Honorable PAC. I recognize Al-Jama.
Thank you very much, Honorable House Chair. Let Al-Jama express its horror at the callous killing of the head of Giver of the Givers in Gaza and those who helped kill him by supporting genocide in Gaza. And now the Honorable Powell expresses her condolence in Parliament. President Ramaphosa announced that he will send humanitarian aid to Gaza and stop trading in arms with Israel. Israel had a war cabinet meeting and declared war on South Africa, and the first step was to kill Abbasi, as South Africa may have sent aid via Giver of the Givers with the help of Egypt. Al-Jama calls on the South African government to convene a war cabinet, as Israel had the support of America and political parties in this House for regime change, and they are not going to wait for the 2024 elections. Al-Jama thanks the EFF for their revolutionary call to close the Zionist embassy, but we must also take legal steps to demolish the buildings in which this embassy is. Al-Jama will also feel that South Africa must summon America, India, and Britain ambassadors for a demarque, and that South Africa must ban the display of Israeli flags. Al-Jama calls for South Africa to suspend all diplomatic relations, but this call must include for the removal of the DA, ACDP, Freedom Front Plus from Parliament, and to take punitive actions against other parties like Action SA and PA who support the genocide of Palestine. South Africa cannot do not want genocide mongers.
Al-Jama, there's something wrong with the screen.
Honorable, just 1 minute, Honorable. May I request that? Oh, it was you. Okay, proceed. You may proceed now. That has disappeared. Thank you, Honorable Chief Whip of the Majority Party.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I would like to continue that South Africa must suspend diplomatic relations with Israel, but this call must also include the removal of the DA, the ACDP, Freedom Front from Parliament, and to take punitive action against parties like Action SA and PA who support the genocide of Palestinians. South Africans do not want genocide mongers as lawmakers. We had enough of them during apartheid. History and the current situation where the DA rules tells us occupation, apartheid are their traits, and they join the Israeli government and its military leaders to be on the list like Nazis were on military leaders to be on the list, just like Nazis were on the list after the Holocaust. Something which Honorable Powell said that all this must be remembered. Humanitarians, not in our lifetime, but they will hunt them down, and many of them, many of us will jump in joy after getting the news in heaven that they have been dealt with, just like we are very happy that those for the Holocaust are being dealt with. No one wants vampires on planet Earth. Imam Sheikh, you said they were less than human beings. The Honorable Chairman of the Portfolio Committee coined it very well. They are all vampires. Those who support the genocide in Palestine, like the DA and Action SA and the ACDP, they behave like vampires and not human beings. I don't know what scriptures they read. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Member. The member used like, he didn't say directly, Honourable.
Point of order.
Yes,
Arise on Rule 85. 85, the Honourable Member referred to members of the ACP and other parties as vampires and cast aspersion on us. I'd ask you to rule on that. It's way beyond debate. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, but please note that he said like, he didn't say they are. So he was very cautious in terms of crafting his words on that. Now I recognize Honorable S.O.R. Mahoma Pelu. Over to you, sir. No. It's not you. It's the DA. Honorable DA. Mr. Chetty.
Madam Chair,
Honorable Chetty.
I wish to start this debate with a famous quote by the late Mohandas Karamchand Gandhiji, who said, "An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind." And the conflict and claims and counterclaims of one side against the other in this conflict between Palestine and Israel personifies Gandhiji's quote. Supporters on either side of the conflict are being blinded by the hatred for each other, that they cannot see the human rights violations of the elderly, the women, and the children. There can be no better place in the world to have this debate than right here in South Africa in this parliament. Our experience, our history, and the lessons we have learned from our own divisive past can become the light that shines across Israel and Palestine to brighten their path for a long-lasting, peaceful solution to the conflict. We too, as South Africans, walked a similar path that the Palestinians and the Israelis are walking today. Let us not forget that right here in our own country, the struggle for freedom, self-determination, and democracy did not come without much sacrifice and suffering. There was a time in our past when South Africa was also burning. Bullets, tear gas, and bombs were the currency of the day. Anger, hate, and revenge permeated our daily lives as the apartheid government, supported by some governments of the world, tried everything in their power to keep us divided as a nation because it suited their interests to do so. For decades, South Africa was engaged in its own war, and millions of us to this day still suffer the consequences of our unequal past. It will take many more decades and a few more generations before we completely rid ourselves of our ugly historical past and build a country where every single family can have a home and a decent job. Today, many of us take this democracy for granted. We forget that we would not have been here today if the courageous leaders of our country did not start a peaceful dialogue and a genuine, sincere attempt to stop the war and division and start talking peace and prosperity. Those leaders at Kodasa are the ones who brought us here today. It was not easy. There was a genuine willingness to build a better future for all South Africans. What Israel and Palestine needs right now is their own Kodasa. This war has to stop. But it can only stop when the leaders of both sides are prepared to walk the same road that South Africa did to find peace. South Africa could not end this devastation and destruction. It could have been so much worse for us. But our leader, the great late Tata Nelson Mandela, had the courage to say, take your guns, your knives, and your pangas and throw it into the sea. It took leaders from all sides of our own war to follow in his footsteps and walk the road to peace. It is now our turn to turn to Israel and Palestine and say, stop this war. Throw your missiles and bombs into the Mediterranean Sea and start the process of talking about peace and not talking about war. Madam Chair, no amount of bombs and missiles can solve this conflict. Israelis will never bomb Palestine away from the map, and neither can Palestine eradicate the Israelis from the world. We as South Africans all have a role to play to bring them together and not tear them further apart. Not every Israeli citizen is guilty of crime, nor every Palestinian a terrorist. There are innocent women, children, and elderly, regardless of whether they are Israeli or Palestinian, who are suffering the consequences of the weak leadership that exists in that region. And the rest of the world are standing, watching, and picking a side. No good will come from doing that, unless the leaders of both sides can start a process of dialogue this conflict will never come to an end, and the rest of the world will remain divided on this conflict. It has to start with them. That's why we should be the ones at the forefront to help the Israelis and the Palestinians to find peace. No other country in the world can claim to have walked the path that we have. South Africa should be taking the lead role in helping this come together. We should not be picking a side. There can be no reason why Israelis and Palestinians cannot live side by side with each other in a peaceful way. When everyone respects each other's right to dignity and respect for each other's cultural and
Honorable
religious beliefs.
Honorable Chetty, 1 minute. May I take Honorable Hope Papo? Your hand is up. I'm just noticing now.
I'm just saying, am I no longer on the speaking list?
Okay, let me sort it out outside the debate. I'll come back to then.
No, but I am on the speaking list.
No, Honorable Hope, can I just allow Honorable Chetty to come? Then we'll deal with that when I come back. Allow him to finish. I thought it was a point of order. I'll come back to you.
Thank you,
Honorable Chetty, you may proceed.
There can be no reason why Palestine and Israelis cannot live side by side with each other in a peaceful way, where everyone respects each other's right to dignity and respect for each other's cultural and religious beliefs, as well as equality and human rights for all. If we could do it, they can do. That can start from this parliament. This is where our leaders brought unity and peace in our country. It's now our responsibility to do the same for the people of Palestine and Israel. Madam Chair, I fear that there are many amongst us who are now importing the conflict from Israel and Palestine into South Africa. Right here in this very city, we saw thousands of people, some supporting Israel, some supporting Palestine, demonstrating their hatred for each other. Where are the ones who are supporting peace and unity? Those who are supporting either side in this conflict are starting to sow the seed of hatred in our own country. We must not allow this to happen. It is our wish that South Africa will play a more active role in helping the people of Israel and Palestine to find a long-lasting solution to this war. We want to see a return to political dialogue, and world leaders must play a meaningful role in promoting the dialogue to bring lasting peace and freedom to the people of Israel and Palestine. We support the two-state solution that will promote unity and peace amongst both Israelis and Palestinians. On behalf of the Democratic Alliance, our hearts go out to the millions of people who are suffering the consequences of this war. It has to stop. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Hope Papo, I omitted your good self. Now I can see that I have. It's very unusual for a party to follow each other, but I'll allow you then, followed by Honorable Hope Papo. May I recognize Honorable Hope Papo?
Thanks, House Chair. We, as the ANC, we approach this debate with a sense of grave concern and revulsion at what is happening between Israel and Palestine. In addition to thousands of people who have died before and from October 2023, we pay our condolences to the family of the head of the Gift of the Givers in Gaza, Ahmed Abbasi, who was killed by the bloodthirsty Israeli Defense Force. He was a pharmacist by profession and ran all humanitarian projects of Gift of the Givers in Gaza. As an organization and movement with experience and a track record of active participation in the progressive international solidarity movement, we also approach this debate with decades of close political relations with the people of Palestine in their just and ongoing struggle against occupation of their motherland by Zionist Israel 75 years ago. Our close relations included joint political and military training with Palestinian freedom fighters before our unbanning in 1990. As the Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation has capably outlined the difficult and painful history of the conflict between Israel and Palestine, we wish to highlight the long-standing and ongoing flagrant violations of countless United Nations, General Assembly, and Security Council resolutions by Israel from 1947 to date on various issues such as the rights of protection of Palestinian refugees, the status of Jerusalem, Israeli practices affecting the human rights of the population of the occupied territories, permanent sovereignty over national resources in the occupied Arab territories, and reaffirmation of previous calls for a full Israel withdrawal from the occupied territories and the establishment of a Palestinian state. The flagrant disregard and undermining of the United Nations and regular violation of its resolution should be firmly challenged and stopped by the action of the United Nations member states and people around the world, so that the state of Israel and Palestine can ultimately engage in meaningful negotiations under the auspices of the United Nations, leading to peace and harmony among citizens of Israel and Palestine based on the recognized 1967 borders. It is a known fact that the recognized 1967 borders have over the years been undermined through occupation of Palestine land, through occupation, confiscation, and allowing Israel settlers to take over the land. According to the book titled The Israeli Economy from the Foundation of the State Through the 21st Century, Cambridge University Press, page 143, I quote, "In the June 1967 Six-Day War, Israel occupied the Golan Heights, West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and the Sinai Peninsula. Soon after it began to build the first settlements for Jews in those areas," close quote. This includes East Jerusalem. All these settlements have always been considered and continue to be considered by the international community to be illegal and established in violation of international law. I would not go into the detail of the numbers of settlers there, the decisions and the resolutions of the United Nations Security Council, a report of the Amnesty International on the settlements, United Nations Human Rights Council on the settlement, including the State of Israel Court of Justice attitude towards the occupation of Palestine. In an article published by the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, dated 7th March 2023, entitled Open Code, How Israel Settlements Impede the Two-State Solution, Reham Oda, a Palestinian political analyst based in Gaza City, who is a PhD researcher at the University of St. Malaysia, argues that, open quote, settlement pose a number of direct challenges to the establishment of a Palestinian state by violating Palestinian sovereignty, threatening civil peace and security, jeopardizing water resources, and blocking agricultural development. This is in addition to the many reports which were published by the United Nations declaring the settlements as illegal and against international law. Other members have already indicated the devastation which has been caused before the 7th of April and after the 7th of April. And the ANC is very clear, we don't condone what happened on the 7th of April. That was made clear by the Minister of DERCO. The Deputy Minister has made it clear. But the proportion of the response of Israel is completely way above what was expected. Murder of 11,000 people, majority being women and children, is extremely disproportionate. Now, the ANC remains both as a liberation movement and a democratically elected governing party. Our country has diplomatic relations with both Israel and Palestine. This was based on our firm belief that instead of walking away from the situation, we must be part of finding a lasting solution to the current and dire situation between Israel and Palestine, coming from our own conflict caused by colonialism of a special type and a crime of apartheid system, which involved the spilling of blood of many patriotic South Africans. We also believe that after everything is said and done, disputes should be ultimately be solved through negotiations. In response to that situation in occupied Palestine and guided by the 2017 ANC National Conference resolution, the cabinet of our country took a decision to downgrade the status of our embassy in Israel. The resolution to continue with the downgrading of our embassy in Israel was reaffirmed by the 2022 ANC National Conference. Still guided by the ANC National Conference resolution, Cabinet recently resolved to recall all our diplomats from Israel for purposes of consultation about the deteriorating situation, and also summon the ambassador of Israel to South Africa, to DERCO, to reprimand him for the undiplomatic and undermining statements against our country. These are the measures our country has taken so far in response to the situation in Palestine. We've been and continue to work hard politically and diplomatically to convince other countries of our continent and the rest of the world to also adopt all or some of these measures. This is not an easy task to do and requires commitment. That is why we are calling for an immediate cessation, ceasefire, opening of humanitarian corridors, release of hostages, Palestinian prisoners, and initiation of peaceful negotiation between Israel and leaders of the Palestinian people under the auspices of the United Nations. As progressive internationalists, we have been involved in the international solidarity movement for many decades. We know that our decisions about the situation in Palestine or any part of the world we are in solidarity with have to be informed and based on the interest of people who are in solidarity with, and not necessarily our wishes. They should be based on a careful assessment of the balance of social, political, and economic forces in our country, our continent, and the rest of the developing and developed world. We are revolutionaries, not fanatics. Every decision we take have to be rational, strategic, tactical, and should not result in the weakening and isolation of positions of our country from positions of the rest of the Southern African region and the continent. We should not move alone on difficult matters such as this one. That is why, whilst we support the essence of this motion, we are open for an engagement with the EFF so that there could be some amendments, which does not change the essence of the motion, but to not close the embassy and cut diplomatic relations without putting conditions to that. And that we can deal with, because if you do that and full stop, then you close the opportunity for continued engagement with other stakeholders on our continent and the Middle East, and the ability to continue to have influence on the situation. Without those necessary amendments, the motion, it's important that we amend. And as I say, and we will indicate in our amendments, those conditions linked to the closure and the cutting of diplomatic relations have to be effected. Otherwise, the motion will not be carried. But I hope the EFF will accept those amendments we have to make to the motion, which does not change the essence of it. Thanks.
Thank you, Honorable Hope, and your understanding that I skipped you earlier on. With that, honorable members, for noting, for Honorable Malema left 2 minutes, then means for closing, EFF has got 5 minutes. I now recognize Honorable S.O.R. Mahomapelo. Over to you, sir.
The esteemed chairperson of the House, colleagues bestowed with honorability, on behalf of the politically deep-rooted disciplined force of the left, the African National Congress, our heartfelt condolences to the families and friends of the fellow compatriots of the gift of the givers who have reportedly been killed yesterday by the Zionist State of Israel Defense Force. Their blood and many others will not go in vain, for one day the Palestinian people's struggle shall triumph. Chairperson and honorable members, humanity finds itself in a painful, deep anguish and incomprehensible quagmire, the genesis of which is the taking by brutal force, lethal and genocidal force, by the state of Israel of the land of the people of Palestine. The manifestations of the historical injustice on the Palestinian people is multifold. They are denied the right to free movement in their own land, security and safety in their own land, religious persuasions in their own land, ownership of property in their own land, access to trade freely in their own land, access to their own properties in their own land, access to unhindered medical care in their own land, access to information and education in their own land, visits to relatives and friends in their own land. The pretext, of course, by the apartheid genocidal state of Israel is that they are extricating Hamas from the Palestinian Gaza population. Israeli military adventurism has resulted in small children, infants, women, disabled people, pregnant women, the sick, and many other innocent people, amounting over 11,000 today.
Point of order.
Because in the eyes of the genocidal apartheid state of Israel, these people represent or resemble or embedded in their genes is Hamaism and therefore deserves no right to life. The military adventure by the apartheid genocidal state of Israel is an exercise in futility because seeking to sift Hamas
Honorable
from
Mahuma
the
Pelu, Honorable Mahuma Pelu, Honorable
Yes.
Swart, it's raising a point of order. I thought he said he was up, but he's still shouting a point of order. May
problem.
I recognize him? Honorable Swart.
My apologies, I did have my hand up, Chair, but I just need clarity on what is in front of the speaker in a bottle, and is it permissible to what is in the front of the screen? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Getile, mana, yes, getile.
Honorable Mahuma Pelu, you may proceed.
Okay. The military adventure by the apartheid genocidal state of Israel is an exercise in futility because seeking to sift Hamas from the Gaza people is tantamount to asking and expecting water to wage a war against water molecules, which is an impossible mission. This inhumane, genocidal, human carcass inducement and evil adventure by the apartheid state of Israel imposes a responsibility on the progressive thinking masses of the world to agree with us when we say Netanyahu and therefore Netanyahuism and its associates deserve nothing less than an investigation by the International Criminal Court within its unambiguous principal mandate, which includes crime against humanity, genocide as examples. As part of the necessary de-Netanyahuism process, the apartheid state of Israel and Netanyahu himself have to be made political skunks of the world, for that is what they deserve. Netanyahuism deserves practical action by the world to make Benjamin Netanyahu and his associates of the apartheid state of Israel pariahs of the world, for the world will be better with him as a global political pariah. The progressive thinking people of the world in general and South Africa in particular should in one voice say, until the genocidal apartheid state of Israel demonstrates genuine willingness to allow unhindered delivery of humanitarian relief, peaceful negotiations, and the need to create conducive conditions for dialogue on coexistence of the two sovereign states of Israel and Palestine. The correct political decision by the South African government to reground the ambassador of Israel back to the state of Israel must be maintained. South Africa is a self-respecting country that pursues full human rights. It is therefore critical for us as a country to demonstrate our principled stance to take a drastic action against the operations of the state of Israel through its embassy here in South Africa. Chairperson, political expediency is a manifestation of deep-seated levels of incorrigibility, as demonstrated by the pendulumist Democratic Alliance. They have, without sparing any breath or pause, taken action to demote with urgency their Mr. Kachalia for a mere tweet or expression of his disgust and pain on the killing of the Palestinian people by the apartheid Israel. They come here and seek to mislead the people of South Africa. We do not, as the people of South Africa, suffer from memory lapse syndrome as the DA does. This instant demotion of your Mr. Kachalia is a clear demonstration that you, the DA, you harbor beneficiaries of the same apartheid system which the state of Israel is clinging to. As the General Secretary of the United Nations, Mr. Guterres said, and I quote, while we recognize legitimate security concerns of Israel, I also remind Israel that military operations must be conducted in strict accordance with the international humanitarian law. Civilians must be respected and protected at all times. Chairperson, whilst investments are important in any economy, including the economy of South Africa, investments soaked in the blood of the people of Palestine will not be embraced at all costs by the African National Congress. We will engage in critical, necessary, principled engagements through the United Nations, all the progressive forces of the world, for all and sundry to understand that as South Africa, if conditions compel us to arrive at a decision to look at the matter of economic sanctions, it will, among others, be informed by our principal stance that investment soaked in the blood of the people of Palestine will not be embraced or pursued at all costs.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I now recognize Honourable Malema to close the debate. And you've got 5 minutes, Honourable Member. Honourable Malema. I guess, oh, there you are. Over to you, Honourable Member.
Speaker, we fully agree with all those who are saying we need to insist on the arms embargo against Israel, and we must also continue with our withdrawal of our embassy staff from Tel Aviv and Israel. We fully agree that indeed parties such as the DA will never understand the suffering of the people of Palestine because they've never been in the conditions those people find themselves in. If anything, they benefited from the suffering and the pain of others, and they will not immediately relate with what is happening in Palestine. We know what is forced removal. We know what is land occupation. We are still coexisting with land occupiers who come here and want to tell us about political point scoring and political opportunism. We cannot be lectured about human rights by beneficiaries of the butchering of our people. People who still wish that the tables can turn and that they can perpetuate what they used to do during apartheid days. So for the fact that they do not have an experience of being a victim of an apartheid, they will never support this. Why should it come as a surprise that the IFP will not support an action to remove an Israeli embassy? They did not support sanctions against apartheid. They did not support the international isolation of the South African apartheid. And they've always been the collaborators. They are direct beneficiaries of some of those who are linked with the apartheid, Zionist apartheid state. So apartheid collaborators and the people who opposed apartheid sanctions and international isolation do not stand any chance of supporting exactly the same call that we're making, because we know the power of international solidarity. So we're calling on all progressive forces to reject the blackmail of the FF+ when it says that ANC will support EFF, the ANC can't support EFF, the ANC must be bold. That's how those who benefited from the blood of others will behave. The bloodsuckers, the vultures, the people who are still longing for the human flesh of Africans will never see anything wrong with what is happening in Palestine. Stop scaring us about economic opportunities that are going to be denied when we are removing the embassy of Israel. That is swart gevaar It is what Afrikaner apartheid apologists survived with. They always created scaremongering and scare tactics for people not to support the genuine struggle. A product, the immediate beneficiary, the grandchild of the inventors of Swart Gevaar is coming with Swart Gevaar tactics here, that there are certain economic opportunities that if you remove the Israeli embassy, you will forfeit those opportunities and certain skills. That's what Afrikaner apartheid apologist survives on. And this should never be shocking to some of us. So we agree that indeed the referral to the ICC by the president, it's a clear direction that we cannot say these people are engaged in violation of human rights and still have them in our territory. They need to go. We need to take a bold move and say these people will go. And these people must go with immediate effect. We are not opposed to any amendment of any motion, because for us, this is not political opportunism. This is not point scoring. As long as at the end of the day, we agree that the Israeli embassy must be dismissed from South Africa, the rest of other gymnastics which people feel that they need to add on this motion are more than welcome, especially the ANC that prides itself of having benefited from international solidarity. It's an opportunity now for you to stand on the side of the people of Palestine, who have been on the side of the people of South Africa in the struggle against apartheid. It is our opportunity now to thank the world and teach the international criminals that their crimes will no longer go unpunished. Our struggle for the self-determination of the people of Israel is nothing against the Jewish people, it's everything against Netanyahu, it's everything against the Zionists, it's everything against violation of human rights. This morning we're bombarded with SMSs on our phones and emails and social media accounts because the Board of Deputies and the Zionist Federation send their members our numbers to insult us, to intimidate us. Will never be intimidated. The people of Palestine will know their freedom one day, like we struggled, and today we know our freedom. Will never know true democracy until the world it is democratized and people enjoy the freedom. Palestine.
Thank you. Honorable Malema, the time is up, sir. Thank you. And just for noting, I'm the presiding officer, I'm not the speaker, but nevertheless, it's fine, we may proceed. Honorable members, that concludes the debate. We shall now proceed, honorable members, to the last item on the order paper, which is a subject for discussion in the name of Honorable P A Phetlhe on the significance of the expanded composition of the nations comprising the BRICS Bloc to advance the South agenda and the transformation of the international multilateral institutions. I now recognize Honorable P A Phetlhe. Over to you, Honorable Member.
Thank you, Chairperson or Presiding Officer, for this afternoon. Let me thank and greet everyone on the platform. Honorable members of the National Assembly, I stand before you today with a profound sense of purpose and optimism as we gather to deliberate on a matter of great significance, the expanded BRICS nations and their pivotal role in advancing the South-to-South agenda and transforming international multilateral institutions. This discourse is not merely about cooperation, but it is about shaping a future where unity among developing nations takes center stage. I want to extend my gratitude for sponsoring this motion and providing me with the opportunity to address this August Assembly on the 16th of November, 2023. The theme I bring before you is one of unity and cooperation, not just within the BRICS nation, but also with the broader developing countries Our world is undergoing unprecedented challenges, and in the face of such adversity, it becomes imperative that nations join hands for the greater good of humanity. In reflecting on the recently concluded 15th BRICS Summit in Johannesburg, I am reminded of the insightful words shared by the President Cyril Ramaphosa in his opening address of the summit. He eloquently stated, I quote, "While the expanded BRICS will undoubtedly serve as an important champion for the global South, South Africa stands to reap significant benefits from its robust relationships with these nations. Together, our countries constitute nearly a third of the global economy and are home to a combined 46% of the world's population." Close quote. These words underscore the profound impact and strategic importance of South Africa engagements with the expanded BRICS nations. The immense economic prowess and demographic influence within this coalition not only positions South Africa as a key player, but also highlight the potential for shared prosperity and collaborative efforts that transcend borders. As we navigate the complexities of our interconnected world, let us seize the opportunities presented by this powerful alliance to foster growth, development, and mutual understanding. In hosting the recent 15th BRICS Summit in Johannesburg, South Africa achieved a resounding success to promoting mutual accelerated growth, sustainable development, and inclusive multilateralism for both the BRICS nation and the African continent. The summit, conducted under the theme of BRICS and Africa, Partnership for Mutually Accelerated Growth, Sustainable Development, and Inclusive Multilateralism, close quote, served as a testament to the commitment of President Cyril Ramaphosa and the nation to the principles encapsulated in the Freedom Charter, particularly the maximum, "There shall be peace," open quote, "there shall be peace and friendship," close quote. The Freedom Charter's emphasis on South Africa as an independent state that respected the sovereignty of all nations aligns seamlessly with the summit's overarching theme, reflecting a dedication to promoting world peace through negotiations rather than alignment with the military blocs. The ANC-led government commitment to equal rights for all underscores its pursuit of fostering peace and friendship on a global scale, paving the way for a multipolar world that prioritizes citizens' interests and ensures a sustainable future. In the face of global transitions and crises, the urgent need for a more just and inclusive global governance system cannot be overstated. The outcomes of the BRICS conference not only reiterate the ANC's commitment to an international order that safeguards common interests, but also positions South Africa strategically within BRICS to advance common development goals with other member countries and the broader world, particularly within the African continent. Allow me to deliver to the key areas of cooperation with BRICS and the potential benefits that can emanate from such collaboration in social, economic, and political spheres. First and foremost, we must recognize the profound impact that a partnership for mutual accelerated growth can have on our collective economic recovery and growth. The BRICS nations, with their diverse economies and vast resources, have the potential to serve as catalysts for a global economic resurgence. By fostering an environment of collaboration and shared prosperity, we can collectively overcome economic challenges and chart a course towards sustained growth. Parliamentary diplomacy is another cornerstone of our collaboration within BRICS. Strengthening the diplomatic ties is crucial for fostering understanding, trust, and cooperation among our nations. As parliamentarians, It is our responsibility to build bridges that transcend borders and ideologies, laying the foundation for a more interconnected and cooperative world. Moreover, the BRICS nation can play a pivotal role in contributing to the global recovery and sustainable development. Through strategic partnership and coordinated efforts, we can address pressing issues such as climate change, poverty alleviation, and healthcare, thereby creating a more equitable and sustainable world for future generations. In the realm of agriculture, there is immense potential for cooperation to enhance food security and improve nutrition. By sharing best practices, technology, and resources, BRICS countries can bolster agricultural development and promote sustainable practices. This collaboration is not just about securing our nation's food sources, but also about creating a global ecosystem that prioritizes the well-being of all. Lastly, let us not overlook the digital divide that persists in our world. In an era dominated by technology, it is our collective responsibility to bridge this gap by fostering innovation, sharing technological advances, and promoting digital literacy. We can ensure that the benefits of the digital age are accessible to all, leaving no one behind. In conclusion, Chair, the expanded BRICS nations stand at a crossroads, and our choices today will shape the trajectory of international relations and development for years to come. Let us seize this moment to reaffirm our commitment to unity, cooperation, and shared progress. Together, we can build a world where the South-to-South agenda is not just a concept, but a reality that transforms the very fabric of international multilateral institutions. Thank you, new Chairperson, and I look forward to the meaningful discussion that will unfold in this assembly. As the ANC government is this 30 years has made wonders, and it has made us to be where we are today. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I now recognize Honourable Masipa.
Thank you, House Chairperson. In 1999, the late Helen Suzman once told her caucus that when in doubt, always stick to the principles. Those words inspired many around her and continue to do so to this day. It is a mantra that has informed the Democratic Alliance values and party philosophy. This in turn has resulted in a principled governance approach in areas where we govern, which has made the Democratic Alliance Western Cape an engine of sustained economic growth and job creation. Today, we debate the importance of an expanded composition of the BRICS Bloc in the face of geopolitical upheaval and polarization due to an unrelenting assault on the principles of rule-based international order. South Africa is not an exempt. The ruling party has no principled position. All clear policies and implementation plans for economic growth trajectory have been shelved aside to allow corruption and moral bankruptcy to thrive. The economic policies on land reform have not worked, and instead we have noticed all vital organs of state that are meant to be supportive to land reform and rural economic development being destroyed under the corrupt ANC government. The lack of the rational plan to turn around the economy has left many vulnerable South Africans jobless and unable to fend for themselves. While many suffer, only the corrupt political elites in the ANC are secure in the comfort of taxpayer-funded lifestyles. They remain unbothered by the 60% unemployment rate among the youth of our country. South Africa can learn much about land regularization in Brazil, a BRICS member which credits Israel for its agricultural technologies, has placed a huge focus on regulating the land use and occupation of public and rural settlement plots. Brazil's agrarian reforms are devoted to the principle of social justice and increased productivity. The expansion of the BRICS Bloc's House Chair is yet another non-event which will add little value to our stagnant economy. Trade between new members and South Africa is very minuscule, where still they do not share our democratic values and principles. In fact, some of them are habitual human rights offenders. Yes, South African farmers require more bilateral treaty and export protocol to grow our foreign exchange revenue, but not at the cost of principles, House Chair. In the end, the bloc could bring limited benefit to farmers. In this expanded BRICS bloc, the ANC is pitting South Africa against some of our most important trading partners, and this could hurt South Africa in the long run as our products, especially agricultural produce, could face stiff tariffs, which farmers don't want. Since the dawn of democracy, our fruit exports have increased dynamic growth due to export market access to US, EU, and UK markets. The decline in livestock and animal product exports from 80% to 1% from this important markets has largely been a consequence of the ANC government's poor economic policies that have compromised animal health institutions. House Chairperson, for South Africa to realize the benefits from any trading bloc, we should not compromise on principles of the rule of law, human rights, and democracy. The ANC government cannot continue to side with the aggressors, remain nostalgic about communist Russia comradeship while driving millions of South Africans into poverty. It is not in South Africa's best interest in the long term to be in the club of the Russian and Iranian dictatorship, House Chairperson. Aligning with despots such as Russia, Syria, and Iran will actively harm our relations with our important trading partners in the West. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has toppled global food security and left most African countries food insecure, and ANC said nothing. Part of the food inflation that we face here in South Africa has been caused by the disruption of global food supply chains by Russia. Now, many South Africans households, House Chairperson, are struggling to put food on the table. The most devastating story being that of an Eastern Cape mother who killed her 2 kids before taking her own life because she couldn't provide for them. May their soul rest in peace. Under John Steenhuisen, all is not lost. When the DA takes over in 2024 at the BRICS level, we will make our voice heard of human rights, the rule of law, and democratic order, which we
honorable members.
At the domestic level, the Democratic Alliance will scrap policies that are detrimental to job growth and focus on those that will help our country champion export-led economic growth. I thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, honorable member. I now recognize Honorable Shivambo. Over to you, sir.
No, thank you very much, House Chairperson. The Economic Freedom Fighters welcomes and appreciates the resolution of the 15th BRICS Summit, which took place here in South Africa, to invite additional 6 countries to form part of what will, from the 16th Summit, which will be held in the Russian Federation, will become BRICS plus 6. The 15th BRICS Summit progressively and correctly resolved to invite the Federal Republic of Ethiopia, the United Arab Emirates, the Islamic Republic of Iran, Republica Argentina, Arab Republic of Egypt, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, to form part of a progressive group of countries in pursuit of common economic, financial, social, and political cooperation and prosperity. BRICS, which from 2010 is comprised of the 5 countries of the Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, already accounted for 41% of the global gross domestic product and 41% of the global population. Now, the inclusion of these 6 additional countries, the expansion, will then lead to the quantitative and qualitative outright majority in terms of the economic size and the dominance of the global population by this particular bloc. We believe that this is an important step in the right direction and one which will rid the world of colonialism, neocolonialism, and the imperialist control of the world by countries that are organized under the Group of Seven. The reality is that since the First and Second World Wars, a significant component of the world has been under the colonial and neo-colonial political, social, and economic domination and exploitation of the countries organized currently under the Group of Seven, which are the United States of America and its puppet governments and countries of Japan and Canada, Italy, France, the United Kingdom, and the European Union. The convergence of the Global South under the progressive banner of equal trade, respect, and common prosperity is what is now BRICS +6. Must counter neocolonialism domination of the West, which continues to plunder and ravage the natural and economic resources of the world that we live in. As we resolved in the BRICS Parliamentary Forum, we as the economic freedom fighters believe that the African Union should be officially included and invited into the BRICS +6 in the same way the African Union was included and invited into the G20 group, and in the same way the European Union is part of the G7. The inclusion of the African Union into BRICS +6 cooperation will assist in the common and integrated development of the African economy, particularly in the era of African free trade area, the continental free trade area, which is progressively collapsing the barriers and borders for harnessed and enhanced African intra-trade. This is due to the fact that inter-African trade faces significant limitations due to inadequate inter-African and pan-continental infrastructure, which impacts the free movement of goods and people within the continent. South Africa and the entire African continent will use our participation in BRICS +6 platforms to achieve maximum common prosperity and the development of the entire continent. We highlight that in pursuit of such, let us prioritize the programs that are the flagship programs of Agenda 2063. One of those programs is a high-speed rail network, train network connecting all African capitals and commercial centers. Two is the formulation of a strategy for transforming the African economy from a supplier of raw materials to one that actively uses its own resources. Three is the introduction of the African Union passport, the removal of all visa requirements for all its holders within Africa, but also to end the wars. So we must utilize the participation of South Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, but now with the African Union to then reverse the ravages and the remnants of colonialism and that has got to define the African continent. But we also believe that the BRICS bloc should create powerful and viable alternate financial institutions and developmental financial institutions, which will counter and work outside the framework of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. But also we need to purposefully push for the reform of the United Nations, which when was founded in 1945, there were only 3 countries in the African geography which had relative autonomy, which were Egypt, Liberia, and Ethiopia. We currently have got more than 50 countries. We've got a population of more than 1.2 billion people as the African continent, and we do not have meaningful participation in the United Nations, particularly in the Security Council. The systems that govern the United Nations are not democratized, are not representative of our people, are not representative of the geography of the entire world. So we should utilize our friendship and cooperation with all the countries in BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, Saudi Arabia, Argentina, Ethiopia, Iran, to push a progressive agenda. We collectively constitute the majority of the population in the world. We should democratize the United Nations and make sure that it's represented. And lastly, we should, in the 16th summit, start the process of de-dollarization and move away from utilizing the dollar as a
Unfortunately, there's no lastly, your time is up.
economy. Thank you very much. We welcome this development.
Thank you. I now recognize Honorable Hlengwa.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. On January 1, 2024, Argentina, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates will become members of BRICS. With these new members, the BRICS Plus grouping, as it will henceforth be known, will have a 29% share of the global GDP. The grouping will represent 46% of the world's population. Oil production within the grouping will more than double to 43%, and based on the merchandise trade, the grouping will hold 25% share of the global exports. On paper, with the addition of these new members, who are all part of the Global South, the BRICS Plus grouping will wield enormous power on the world stage. It will be in a stronger position to push for much-needed reforms of multilateral institutions to advance the South-South cooperation agenda. As the world transforms, so too must the worldwide organizations that were created to serve humanity. The United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres, speaking at the BRICS Forum held in Johannesburg this year, acknowledged that today's global governance structures reflect yesterday's world. And importantly, for multilateral institutions to remain truly universal, they must reform to reflect today's power and economic realities. Ironically, among the most needed reforms are those of the United Nations itself, particularly as it relates to the composition of the United Nations Security Council and the highly contested veto right held by the 5 permanent members. This reform is something that the IFP continues to call for, as the veto right completely negates the voting rights of the non-permanent members and allows for unilateral decision-making. It is significant that the new members of the BRICS Plus are all part of the Global South, and the additional 2 African countries, Ethiopia and Egypt, now bolster the African voices in this grouping. Together, they can advocate for reforms of other powerful multilateral institutions, such as the IMF and the World Bank, that have long had a stranglehold on the global economy and whose policies are not structured to benefit developing nations. According to a 2023 September Human Rights Watch report, the International Monetary Fund, with the global debt crisis looming, is setting conditions for its loans that risk undermining people's economic, social, and cultural rights. It is therefore both hopeful and necessary that the new development bank, once bolstered with contributions from the new BRICS Plus members, should provide a viable alternative to the World Bank and the IMF, with financing that is focused on projects that eradicate poverty and promote equality. However, while the benefits of the South-South agenda are apparent, the IFP feels the need to express concerns about the human rights records of some of the new BRICS Plus members. South Africa is one of only 3 of the original members of BRICS who are democracies within the grouping, a hard-fought and hard-won democracy, one might add. As the IFP, we are concerned by the growing trend by government to pursue a foreign policy agenda that finds South Africa surrounded by countries that do not share the values and principles as enshrined in our constitution. In conclusion, as we pursue the South-South agenda, let us do so in a way that guarantees the rights and freedoms of all those who live in the Global South. I thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I now recognize Honourable Muda. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. House Chair, after more than 40 countries expressed interest in joining BRICS, leaders from the 5-nation bloc decided that Saudi Arabia, Iran, Ethiopia, Egypt, and Argentina and the United Arab Emirates would join the group starting in 2024. With the addition of these 6 countries, BRICS now represents 42% of the world's population and 36% of the global domestic product. The primary economic bloc was originally created as an alternative to the US-led international order, with the goal of offering growing countries in the Global South a counterbalance to Western institutions. The BRICS consensus-based approach has hampered its effectiveness in the past, but the geopolitical factors driving its expansion, as well as the sometimes conflicting strategic goals of its individual members, will have a major role in shaping the future of this international system. Chair, this BRICS gathering in Sandton during August 2023 has largely been seen as a diplomatic victory of the Chinese leader. But above this, China was also able to see through the expansion of the bloc's membership. This matters because the BRICS combination of the US adversaries like Russia and Iran, alongside the US partners like Brazil and India, will force the United States to consider the security interests that they may have to come to share. On the negative side for China, its ambitions to reform the world's financial architecture in favor of global South interests continue to meet frustrations. We have heard a lot about the possibility of a shared BRICS currency in recent months, but this is unlikely to gain traction for many reasons. It implies that BRICS members will have held larger amounts of each other's currencies. It's unclear that any members of the new or expanded BRICS would wish to buy Russian rubles right now, even if they could. Moreover, Chinese yuan still struggles to internationalize meaningfully for its closed capital markets. Since the introduction of the euro in 2002, the currency has had very little impact on the dominance of the US dollar in the 20 years since. So it seems that unlikely that a middle-income alternative would pose much or more of a threat. This expansion may also introduce more challenges than opportunities for the founding members, Chair, especially when it comes to creating alternative institutions to the current world order. The enlarged BRICS will undoubtedly serve as an important forum for global conversation amongst middle-income countries, but that may be its biggest impact on global affairs. It remains to be seen what Brazil stands to gain from its concession to China in remaking of the BRICS, the nature of BRICS. Brazil is widely considered to have supported the expansion of BRICS in return for China's support of Brazil's addition to the United Nations Security Council as a permanent member, alongside fellow BRICS countries, India. The compromise appears lopsided from the start. China walks away with immediate gains and Brazil receives only empty promises. The BRICS summit itself brought few tangible outcomes for South Africa, whose membership in the BRICS is largely symbolic. South Africa is the smallest and most economically insignificant member of the group. As Russia deals with economic sanctions and international condemnation for its war against the Ukraine, BRICS has become an important forum for Moscow. Honourable Chair, over a decade in existence, it remains to be seen whether BRICS will become a force, politically and economically force, in any way with the international system. Thank you, Honourable Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I now recognize Honourable Nkosi. Over to you, sir. May I suggest that you switch off your video,
doubt that BRICS has emerged as a forum with the potential to change the global political as well as economic outlook substantially. That aims to set both regional and global agendas for democratic economic engagement. There is recognition that there is a long-term structural change in the world economy, and this has also resulted in a shift in political influence, alignment, and relations. Both China and India has experienced unprecedented economic growth and are expected to do so in the next 30 years. This will constitute a rebalancing of the relations which cannot be ignored by economists, policymakers, and global decision makers. As we reflect on South Africa's successful hosting of the summit, the ethos of collaboration, shared goals, and a commitment to a more just and inclusive global order still reverberate in our collective conscience. The BRICS Summit has served as a beacon of unity, prompting us to reflect on the importance of South-to-South agenda and its profound impact on the advancement of our African nations. We hope to build on the outcomes of the summit in order to shape our collaborative future and navigate the challenges and opportunities that are presented by the summit. Against this background, we outline our vision and strategies which will propel us towards a brighter, more interconnected, and harmonious global landscape. First, we must acknowledge the fundamental significance of the South-to-South cooperation for the development of African nations. This collaborative approach fosters a sense of solidarity and shared responsibility, enabling us to address common challenges and design appropriate responses to address issues related to sustainable development. The bonds forged through South-to-South cooperation are essential in realizing the African agenda, ensuring that no country is left behind in our collective pursuit of prosperity. As a country, we participate in and are a member of numerous South-to-South treaties and alliances where a range of issues are discussed, ranging from economic underdevelopment and exclusion from important decision-making processes in global fora on matters of climate change, global economy, and norms generation and implementation to discussions on intellectual property regimes. A critical aspect of this cooperation is advancing the implementation of the Millennium Development Goals. Through pooling resources, knowledge, and expertise, we can make significant strides in achieving these goals and bringing about change and improving the quality of life of our people. Notable but unequal progress has been recorded in the areas from renewable to clean energy to the provision of sustainable settlement and water and sanitation. South Africa plays a critical role in ensuring that BRICS prioritizes the continent in terms of infrastructure development, regional integration, and industrialization. In this regard, we are committed to developing a unified continental approach to emerging powers and enlisting the input and key collaborators in Africa. Through our progressive efforts to advocate for the expansion of BRICS to include more African nations, we recognize the substantial role the forum plays in promoting economic growth and development in Africa, particularly through initiatives such as the African Free Continental Trade Area. The collaborative efforts within BRICS creates the opportunity for trade, investment, and technological exchange, contributing to the economic empowerment of African countries. BRIC members countries trade with their African counterparts, which has increased over the years, particularly on infrastructure development, such as the construction of harbors, roads, and bridges. The endeavors serve as exemplars of that which can be achieved when nations join forces for mutual benefit. Through shared projects, technology transfer, and capability building, BRICS nations have set a precedent for effective collaboration that we can emulate and build upon for the greater good of the continent. Further, BRICS holds tremendous potential in supporting African countries to achieve their development goals and address global challenges such as climate change and health crises. By leveraging the collective strength of BRICS, African nations can access resources, expertise, and innovative solutions to tackle pressing issues that transcend borders. Our participation in this forum provides a platform to amplify the voices of African nations, advocate for unique continental challenges, and foster partnerships that amplify our influence on the global stage. It is a collective responsibility to ensure that the benefits of BRICS membership translate in tangible improvements in the lives of people of our continent. It is crucial to underscore in this regard the importance of education in our collective journey towards sustainable development. Education is a cornerstone of progress. By investing in accessible and quality education, we empower our citizens to contribute meaningfully to socio-economic growth of our nations. Collaborations within BRICS allow us to share best practices, promote educational exchange programs, and enhance the skills of our workforce, ultimately fostering innovation and productivity across the continent. In addition to education, the healthcare sector demands that our focus be to recognize that the recent health challenges which have underscored the interconnectedness of our world and the need for robust healthcare systems. By pooling resources in health and expertise within the framework of BRICS, we can strengthen our healthcare infrastructure, enhance disease prevention measures, and improve access to quality healthcare for all. This cooperative approach is not only a response to immediate challenges, but also an investment in the resilience and well-being of our communities for years to come. It is also paramount, Chairperson, to emphasize the importance of a cultural exchange. BRICS provide a unique platform for the rich cultural diversity of our nations to flourish. By promoting cultural understanding and appreciation, we can build bridges of tolerance and mutual respect. Cultural exchange fosters people-to-people connections, laying the groundwork for enduring partnerships that transcend political and economic boundaries, creating a more interconnected and harmonious world. Technology and innovation is an era defined by rapid technological advances. In BRICS collaboration can catalyze the information and technology ecosystems across Africa. We can position our nations at the forefront of the global technological landscape by fostering research and development partnership, promoting technology transfer and investing in digital infrastructure. This not only propels economic growth, but also ensures that African countries actively contribute to shaping technology's future on a global scale. The importance of the African continent in trade, commerce, and industry also means that Africa must influence relationships with its BRICS partners to ensure that key advantages of our country's role as a bridge for lasting ties in natural resources, banking, financial, communication, and transport network. The South Africa agenda, the South-to-South agenda, is not just a theoretical concept. It is a practical framework for collaboration that holds the key for the development and progress of African nation states. Through initiatives like the FESTA, successful South-to-South cooperation, and strategic leveraging of our membership, we can collectively chart a course towards a brighter future for Africa, one that is characterized by a shared prosperity, sustainable development, and global influence. Chairperson, BRICS desires to shape a more democratic and just multipolar world order based on the rule of international law, equality, mutual respect, cooperation, and collective decision-making of all states. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I now recognize Honorable Trink.
Honorable House Chairperson, the ACDP, having participated in the BRICS Summit and Parliamentary Forum held this year, is keenly aware that BRICS is a grouping of emerging market countries that seek to establish deeper ties between their nations and cooperate on economic expansion, including trade. In this regard, the BRICS countries seek to depend on each other for growing influence in the world. Additionally, they strive to advance the South-South agenda and the transformation of the international multilateral institutions, acting as a balance against traditional Western influence. Goldman and Sachs positions that the global economy will be dominated by the BRICS economies by 2050. The main comparative advantage of this group is their low labor costs, favorable demographics, and abundant natural resources. In 2013, BRICS accounted for some 27% of global GDP in purchasing power. Currently, BRICS accounts for 32% of global trade, surpassing the G7. The 5 countries have a total population of 2.8 billion people, accounting for some 42% of the entire global population. The countries in the BRICS bloc cover 26% of the total land area on Earth. This demographical and statistical information is set to change as, in January 2024, another 6 countries will be added to the BRICS bloc, namely Argentina, Ethiopia, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, United Arab Emirates, and the Islamic Republic of Iran. China has a GDP of 19.3 trillion rand, dollars. India, $3.7 trillion. Brazil, $2.4 trillion. Russia, $2.2 trillion, while South Africa, a paltry GDP of some $405.8 billion. Clearly, we lag behind our BRICS counterparts because of the numerous own goals scored by the ruling party. Our manufacturing sector is in decline due to failed economic policies. We have some of the highest crime, unemployment, poverty, and inequality rates in the world, with an inefficient electricity supply and water infrastructure collapsing, where 50% of all water from bulk suppliers never reaches the end consumer. While the economies of our BRICS partners continues to grow, South Africa has lost its #1 spot as Africa's top economy. We are now #3 behind Nigeria and Egypt, and we are set to borrow some 500 billion rand per annum over the outlined years. Unless the ANC is replaced by the African Christian Democratic Party, our standing in BRICS and that as a nation is in jeopardy. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. I now recognize Honorable UDM. We shall proceed and recognize Honorable ATM.
Yeah, I had my hand up.
Oh, Honorable Papa, my apology. I was still like recognizing.
I don't think
Yes,
it's relevant anymore because the member is no longer on the platform. I wanted to ask whether it's parliamentary for the member to insist on calling us rulers when we are elected governors.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Hope Papa. Thank you very much, and my apology for the delay of recognizing your good sir. Honorable ATM. Honorable Good. Honorable the Deputy Minister of International Relations. Over to you, sir. Oh, okay.
Yes, Honorable.
Before that, probably let's take NFP so that it can be in between Honorable Member, Honorable DM, if I may. NFP, do you want to come in? I saw you with your video ready.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Protocol. Let the Deputy Minister come after me. But let's start with the good news. Woolworths have just announced that they will no longer be stocking Israeli products. Well done, Woolworths. Now, Chairperson, on this very important topic, this is what BRICS says and the leadership of BRICS says. First of all, they want to introduce an Islamic financing system, which simply says goodbye to interest and goodbye to the exploitation of all these banking and financial institutions controlled by the colonialists. And I'm sure you observe something, Chairperson, in this house. Colonialists defend colonialists without any doubt. Let's see what else BRICS says besides the financial system. Social upliftment for everyone in the world. Now, that certainly doesn't go as far as the colonialists who want to continuously control us and make us vulnerable and ensure that our people remain poor all their lives. Let's see what else BRICS says. It says a safe and secure world, which means those colonialists, particularly the West and the Zionists, will not be able to make money out of arms and ammunitions and cause chaos and mayhem and division and destruction. They are talking about a new World Health Organization, Chairperson, which simply means that what the current World Health Organization is doing, and you can see what has happened with COVID and all the evidence that's unfolding, how it was manipulated, how it was created, how the vaccines and most of them benefit, of course, were from these colonialist countries. And of course, now the evidence is more and more people are dying as a result of that vaccine. So they're talking about a new currency because the US dollar has been manipulating currencies all over the world. So what does it simply tell us? That this is a very positive step in the right direction, a South-South agenda. The time has come when we need a new world order where there's peace and prosperity. And if ever there is an opportunity for peace and prosperity, then it is indeed going to come from this new BRICS initiative. Yes, indeed, only 6 other countries have thus far been accepted, but the intention and the plan is to accommodate a whole lot more. But they want to follow due process, ensure they crawl before they walk. So I think indeed the opportunities that is being created by BRICS must be encouraged. If you remember what the late words of former Muammar Gaddafi, the late leader of Libya, what he said, one Africa, one continent, one currency, one president. I think we're heading in that direction. And if this initiative, I think you are there to tell me I must get off, Chairperson. I'll do so. Thank you.
No, I wasn't going to say that, but anyway, thank you very much, Honorable Imam Sheikh. That will give us then to go to the Honorable Minister, the Deputy Minister of International Relations and Cooperation, Honorable Bottas. Over to you, sir.
No, thank you very much, House Chair, Honorable Regina Mina Poteng Besoma, Honorable members of Cabinet and Parliaments, fellow South Africans. Today, Honorable members, our geopolitical landscape is in a constant state of flux. There is a plethora of challenges for countries, in particular of the global South, which include, but not limited to a rise in narrow nationalism, right-wing and religious radicalism, violent extremism and terrorism, populism, racism, xenophobia, and other discriminations, including apartheid as practiced by the State of Israel. In addition, Honorable House Chairperson, asymmetrical, non-traditional, and non-linear warfare, poverty, and inequality. The root causes of which includes, but are not limited to, food, water, and energy insecurity. And these challenges inevitably results in a rise in global, continental, regional conflicts, including the genocidal conflict which we see today in Gaza. We hope through the collective efforts of BRICS family, with the vision of building a world that is fairer, just, impartial, inclusive, and more prosperous, it will enable that for Africa, it will enable that in particular for the global South. Our commitment, honorable members, to a fair and just world requires us to confront the existing inequalities, discrimination, bias, injustice, unfairness, exclusivity, and unipolar conduct, which more than often engage in weaponization of multilateral institutions. And importantly, Honorable House Chair, the central topology and posture of BRICS was there, a significant consensus on the need to change the global architecture, including, Bretton Woods institutions and a number of, key UN institutions, including your UN Security Council, which should obviously be, in terms of the Common Africa agenda, as encapsulated in the Zwelweni Consensus and the Surti Declaration. So the BRICS family, honorable members, has been consistent to champion the transformation of the global governance architecture on the three pillars based on political, financial, and economic cooperation, and has, become a very reliable voice and an ally of the global South when we engage in international politics. Importantly, Chair, the BRICS leaders committed themselves in the Johannesburg II Declaration to strengthen cooperation on issues of both common interest, both within the BRICS family and within the broader multilateral fora, including the United Nations General Assembly, UNGA, and the United Nations Human Rights Council, the HRC. And it has committed, obviously, to pivot key priorities for the global South in advancing the South-to-South agenda, including the African agenda of 2063, premised on the 7 aspirations, which speaks about the inclusive South Africa that are stable and that are more prosperous, as envisaged by our forefathers during the OAEU's founding in 1963. The BRICS family, honorable members, has agreed to oppose attempts by some states to use human rights agenda to pursue narrow national interests on the pretext of promoting human rights. For an example, the weaponization of the United Nations Human Rights Council. And what we have agreed, honorable members, in relation to the multilateral human rights ecosystem, is in particular to give equal attention to all human rights, and our approach of equality of scale for first, second, and third generation rights is obviously juxtaposed by the approach of some states in the Northern Hemisphere to continue to emphasize the supremacy of civil and political rights over economic, social, and cultural environmental rights, which is the key right that obviously is embedded within our program. The BRICS, honorable members, wants to ensure that global governance institutions remain faithful to multilateralism and a rules-based approach premised on international law and to human rights. Furthermore, that human rights and institutions that support them are not abused, honorable members, and weaponized by states in pursuit of the unilateral action and the imposition of unilateral coercive measures under the rubric of the protection of human rights. In particular for us, Honorable House Chair, will be the cooperation as it relates to the elimination of racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance, with a specific emphasis on the comprehensive implementation of and the follow-up to the Durban Declaration and Program of Action. I think, honorable members, as we see the international unfolding disaster on humanitarian level that are taking place and increased violations of international human rights and humanitarian law, including war crimes, what we are enjoining the BRICS nations is to call for an immediate cessation of hostilities and a ceasefire, to call for the establishment of a humanitarian corridor for humanitarian aid, and an embargo, honorable members, of military aid to the state of Israel by all countries. And we are supporting substantively the call made by President Ramaphosa for the ICC to urgently issue a reprimand that should lead ultimately to an arrest warrant that should be leveled against Prime Minister Netanyahu for war crimes, crimes against humanity, and the genocide committed in particular against women and children. And that crimes, honorable members, does not only relate to 7 October 2023. We are speaking here about a 75-year process which accumulatively he, as a chief representative of the Israeli state, should take responsibility for. Honorable House Chair, on the multilateral system, we want to acknowledge it faced unprecedented challenges, but our view, obviously, and optics as the South African government, is that the WTO remains a key instrument within the multilateral arena, and what is needed is for us to transform the WTO as a central body for the development trajectory of, in particular, countries of the global south. I wish to indicate, honorable members, that BRICS partners has committed themselves to strengthen international cooperation and collaboration against the fight against corruption and international financial flows, because it is the antithesis to the development paradigm that the BRICS family nations are actually advancing. One of the key areas that were highlighted about there is the decision that BRICS have agreed to call for the transformation of the UNSC, where we are going to have South Africa, Brazil, and India, amongst others, to play a key and a greater role in international affairs. The second strategic political outcome was obviously the expansion of including the Argentine Republic, the Arab Republic of Egypt, the Federal Democratic Republic of Ethiopia, the Islamic Republic of Iran, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. We are obviously of the opinion, Chair, that it will substantively change the scales of international security, international financial and economic cooperation, international cooperation as it relates to cultural cooperation and people-to-people contact. The third key aspect, Madam Chair, is a consensus that there is an unfair financial architecture, and the summit have decided that there should be a consideration of the BRICS payment and settlement system. That obviously, Chair, is quite significant given the fact that as we advance the Abuja Treaty through the ACFTA, it will obviously become a critical instrument to build inclusive prosperity as envisaged by the forefathers of the OAU. Honorable Chair, I want to conclude.
Switch off your mic. Honorable TM, 1 second. Honorable Shalembe, no, before you conclude, Honorable Shalembe, switch off your mic or you decide just to be out of the system. That will assist. Thank you very much. You may proceed, Honorable TM.
Yes, Honorable House Chair. I think what we are saying, House Chair, as BRICS Chair, South Africa has always stressed the value of BRICS to advance our Pan-African outlook. We do acknowledge the task before us is monumental, but the resolve of the BRICS nations is unwavering in that regard. Antonia Gramsci, Honorable Chair, have reminded us that it is important to tell the truth, because to tell the truth is revolutionary. There must be an acclamation on the leadership provided by President Ramaphosa, which has been unprecedented, unparalleled, substantive, and qualitative to the BRICS 15 BRICS Summit. I conclude with the quote, Honorable House Chair, by Lu Zuhang in the seminal works entitled Some Present Task, and I paraphrase. He says, the people needs a contingent of leaders who are equal to the political task with regard to their number and quality, as well as with regard to their composition. That the people needs a contingent of leaders who are capable of fulfilling to the highest degree the requirements of the political task in each period, unquote. I submit that President Ramaphosa conforms to that characterization. Thank you very much, House Chair.
Thank you, Honorable DM, and I'll recognize Honorable AIC. Honorable Cope. I now recognize Honorable Nyonzo. Over to you, sir. Honorable Nyonzo. No indication, we shall proceed. And it must be noted that between Honorable Bergman and Honorable Phetlhe, nobody is going to speak. I now recognize Honorable Bergman. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. The recent expansion of the BRICS alliance, while seemingly aimed at promoting South-South cooperation, raises serious concerns about its potential to undermine South Africa's interests and erode its strategic standing within the bloc. Many questions arose on the establishment around BRICS. It was concerning to know what the commonality was between the states. It was not economy size. It was not political ideology. And there was hardly any other obvious or glaring commonality that would draw one to an instant conclusion. And if I was a conspiracy theorist, I would have said that it could have been the exploitive and fertile ground that South Africa has to offer that made us unequal but ideal partners. Of course, I would have been proven correct just by looking at the initial investment costs into the bank and the fact that we were the first country within the alliance that would borrow from this newly developed BRICS bank. As the union has developed, it has been more critical to question the motive of BRICS, whether the motive was economic, trade, political, or bold enough to be an alternative to the G7. It has always been our understanding that it would be more a trade arrangement, but as time has shown, it seems to have been a political alliance with unlikely allies. The war in Ukraine was its biggest test, and I think the response has been quite telling. I think it is safe to say that the world is not divided into East and West anymore. I would rather say that there are free countries and ruled states. These two axes are evidently polarizing more and more. with the US and the UK Europe headlining the one side, and on the opposite side is the China, Russia, Iran, its axis. BRICS is possibly the UN of this axis, or with the increasing numbers of membership, it is fast competing with the G20. With 11 countries, its membership is now covering 36% of the world GDP and has 42% of the world population under it. This can now be considered a world order. The new development bank can be seen as an economic tool that can compete with the US dollar and the IMF in borrowing money. None of this would be problematic if the reasons were just and had growth and development as its objective. On the surface, the expansion of the BRICS bloc appears as an opportunity to strengthen the South-South agenda and amplify the voices of the developing nations. However, I fear that such a move could lead to a dilution of the bloc's core values, the few that actually unite the countries in a trade pact, and a weakening of its ability to effectively represent the interests of its members. Adding new members with vastly different economic structures, political systems, and foreign policy priorities has created a high potential for internal divisions and lowers the chances of consensus building. Also, having such an extreme mix is certain that some countries may have their voices drowned out. And with Egypt and Ethiopia included in BRICS, we have diluted our own strategic importance and, more importantly, our value. It must also be noted that the timing of the expansion, whilst the global landscape is currently experiencing unprecedented turbulence with geopolitical tensions rising and economic uncertainties looming, is highly questionable and concerning considering the domestic fiscal pressures. It creates a division, especially due to lack of transparency on contributions and pressures placed on member states and their domestic obligations. Taking into account our membership fees, our borrowing rates, and possibly the cost of AGOA, the intensifying of the grey listing due to polarizations of these axes, our new friends could make this the most spectacular extravagance yet, for which we will have no return except for some Russian power ships, Chinese dams and mines, Iranian ethylene and petroleum. Our Zimbabwean brothers will be climbing this washing line home in droves to get home to safety. Some others will be going to paradise in Namibia. The UN Development Report on Quality of Life will drop from making us on a par with the Palestinian territories currently, which it is, to thinking well below the states of Cuba, Sudan, and Liberia. So when we debate something like BRICS and its new path to the economic development, sure, it is a tale of Robin Hood, but it might not be the script you think it is, and we might not be the actors in the story that we think we are. You see, I think there are less Robin Hoods in the story and more Brother Johns, and it is not the wealthy that are necessarily being stolen from to give to the poor. Therefore, the DA believes that it's time that the ANC takes its already embarrassing and outdated foreign policy and stop looking backwards. It's time to prepare for a new country, a country where they might not even be governments at all. It is time that they start governing this country as if it belongs to everyone that lives in it, and not just the executive and the people greedily feeding at the trough. It seems the one thing that BRICS and the ANC have in common is the lack of diplomacy, and it is the one thing that they could learn together to make the experience worthwhile. If they cannot do it, let them not just have new elections in Johannesburg, let them have an early election nationally too. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Member. I now recognize Honourable Phetlhe to close the debate. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson. And please pardon me, I won't put.
But you can also mute yourself while you can't put your video on.
I've unmuted, Chair. Apologies.
Okay, thank you.
We have observed after this whole debate that there are still those who are immune to development, such as DA and ACDP. And I so wish they come back from the dreamland and realize that ANC has done wonders. It has done the good that they could not do for the past 100 years by their forefathers then. Having said that, Honorable Chair, honorable members, as we conclude this substantive debate throughout our deliberations, it has become evident that BRICS nations play a crucial role in influencing global social, political, and economic dynamics. The collaborations and shared values within BRICS have positioned these nations at the forefront of international discourse, steering the narrative towards a more inclusive and equitable world order. Equally significant is BRICS' central role in advancing the South-to-South agenda. The partnerships within this bloc exemplify the spirit of solidarity among developing nations, transacting geographical boundaries to address common challenges and foster mutual developments. BRICS stands as a practical example of the potential for collective action in reshaping international relations. Furthermore, let us emphasize the importance of BRICS in driving the economic development of countries in Global South, with a special focus on Africa. At the recent BRICS summit, the member nations collectively affirmed their recognition of the vital role women play in the promoting peace and stability globally. In a resounding declaration, the leaders acknowledged, I quote, "We recognize the importance of the increased participation of women in peace processes, including in conflict prevention and resolution, peacekeeping, peace building, post-conflict reconstruction, and development and sustained peace." That is what the summit has noticed that around in BRICS. This statement underscores the commitment of the BRICS nations to fostering inclusivity and gender equality in all facets of peace initiatives. It signifies a shared belief in the transformative power of women's engagement and in addressing the complex challenges of conflict and post-conflict scenarios. As we move forward, it is imperative that we translate this recognition into a concrete action that empower and elevate the contributions of women in the pursuit of lasting peace and global security. Chair, in conclusion, as we reflect on today's discourse, let us carry forward the understanding that BRICS is not merely an association of nations, but it is a catalyst for positive change and a promoter of a more interconnected and cooperative world. The affirmation we make today regarding the critical role of BRICS in global dynamics is significant for South Africa's agenda and its pivotal role in the economic development of countries in the South, particularly Africa, will resonate in the halls of international cooperation. I extend my gratitude to all participants for their valuable contributions, and I look forward to witnessing the continued impact of BRICS on the world stage. With these thoughts, I officially close the debate, hoping that our shared vision for a better future remains steadfast in the days and years to come, especially that African National Congress in 2024 will still come back as a ruling party and take government so that it can teach and lead DA for free. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Member. Honourable Members, that concludes the debate and the business of the visual mini-plenary. Mini-plenary will now rise.